Splendid evening it is to you, Zimbabwe. Welcome to RetroSPECT, your weekly reflection on highlights on the stock markets and on the Zimbabwean economy. I'm Eben Mabunda. Let's go. To discuss the happenings of the week, I'm joined in studio by our very own analyst here at Equity Access, Mr. Kenneth Ndlovu. Kenneth, good evening and welcome to the platform.
Evening, Eben, and thanks for having me on the show.
Splendid. Let's cut to the chase. On Monday, the stock market opened on a positive note.
Yeah.
How did that play out during the week?
Okay, so actually we're coming from a week where trading has just been somewhat dormant, but actually we did take some positives because some counters actually registered positive moves, especially if you look at your large counters. The likes of Econet actually did experience days where they closed in red, but actually the good news is as we close the week today, they managed to close in the positive. Also InScore also coming the positive, but though just coming on 2 basis points up, and then you check also your Delta just coming on 1.53% up, Econet also coming above 1% up, which did actually turn up the everything else in the stock market. If you come to look at your top 10 index where all these guys are trading in, it actually managed also to close the week in the positive, managing to rise by almost 2% for the week, and then that actually drove the all-share index by 1.21%.
Okay.
Just bearing in mind that the top 10 index almost makes up more than 73% of weighting in the all-share index, which somewhat shows you as the story about the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, that a lot of activity or a lot of action and also a lot of weight is actually skewed towards the big guys.
Yeah. Talking about the big guys, there's been turbulence on the part of Econet, which has also had a bearing on the performance of the market during the course of the week. Do you think those unresolved issues with Econet could be responsible for that?
Okay, so my thinking with Econet is when valuators are evaluating the company, let me just speak in terms of the investors when they're evaluating the company.
Go ahead.
Just looking at Econet prior to the talks about unbundling cassava, you actually come to see Econet that's making a lot of money out of EcoCash, but then EcoCash and Steward also they're making a lot of money out of what's happening in the economy at large, like from what's happening,
the 2% tax and things like that.
Yeah, just moving from 2 billion in RTGS money at some point this year to something like more than 10 billion right now, where a lot of money has just been created. A lot of wind money has been created in our economy. All that money is landed in banks and mostly in EcoCash with the transacting public. So Econet has made a lot of money from commissions from people transacting using EcoCash on a daily basis. So that has drove Econet to reach profitability. If you check their financial statements for the year, you do see that cassava actually registered a growth in income of like more than 140% to 250%, which is actually quite phenomenal. So actually the talks now of unbundling that arm of the business out of Econet actually raises some anxiety on the part of investors who might actually, from what I'm thinking, but actually be selling down from Econet shares themselves, and then they just keep some money in their BD accounts so that as soon as cassava lists, and then they can take that money and put it on cassava as well, because it's actually presenting a very good prospect.
So from what you're saying, as soon as cassava lists, then we could expect a bit of stability where Econet is concerned.
We could expect a bit of stability in terms of Econet, the parent company itself. But then I'm suspecting that as soon as cassava lists, we can see a major rise in the share price even on the first day of listing. So it's going to be some stampede sort of to buy the shares. Just also looking at our economic environment, where it's very clear that it's going to take a while for us to move from where we are.
I know you'd love to talk about macroeconomic issues. Let's progress with the conversation, because there was a lot of activity. As the week progressed, we saw positive performance from GetBucks. We also saw positive performance from Power Speed. We also got a highlight on what Citco is up and their focus on the international markets through Citco International, in which they hold a 26.1% holding in that firm. Now, our focus then would be on INSCO. INSCO held their annual general meeting during the course of the week. At the same time, there was an issue hanging over their operations in National Foods, where they hold about 37% stake, right? Where there's a whole issue about flour and wheat threatening to actually put a halt on their production. In fact, they did actually release a statement from the chief executive's desk, Mr. Lashcook, saying that they would actually tool down. Now, a bit of attention there from the central bank as well as from the Minister of Finance. How did the story play out? Has the issue been resolved? What's the status?
So from the news that's doing rounds in Zimbabwe right now, the news that's coming in is the government has managed to resolve that issue. It wasn't really an impasse, but it's just a statement that came from the management of INSCO, from the management of National Foods, that we're going to be closing shop next week just because we are running short of our wheat, wheat stock, which is the major commodity that they use. So the government then managed to step in, and they had some positive talks with the company, which we do hope to see materializing this coming week. If the government was not telling the truth there, then we would just be waiting to see how exactly the story is going to unfold next week, because National Foods is indeed going to be in need to actually mill flour and sell to their customers.
On this one, I will have to believe what the Minister of Industry did actually say, that the issue has been put to bed, because it's a sensitive issue. This is bread here we're talking about. So there are no two ways about it. Okay. And then also we saw GetBucks holding their annual general meeting, declaring a dividend of $800,000. But that would not be perhaps the highlight. The highlight would be in my conversation with the chief financial officer as well as with the chief executive officer of GetBucks. They did highlight their focus on fintech engagement, particularly mobile focus on extending credit facility to their clients. At the same time, during the course of the week, we saw Stuart also coming up with what they've called Kashagi to do the very same form of trade.
Sort of model,
What's your take on that?
So actually, the most important part now, just ignoring all the noise about competition and stuff, the most important part now is how fintech is actually taking its stand in the financial space. Mind you, even in 2008, a lot of businesses suffered because of the economic conditions that we're in. But now, just coming to 2018 right now, the economy of Zimbabwe has sort of suffered quite a lot from macroeconomic fundamentals that are not seated well. So because of that, and what the businesses know about what happened in 2008, they're sort of now positioning themselves in a way that can counter what exactly.
I would sort of bring you back to the competition there from Kashagi.
I'm gonna come there. So that's why you see business like GetBucks actually coming up with innovative ideas such as those, because they want to position themselves in a way where they want actually be able to make losses like what happened in 2008, because businesses were not really prepared for that crisis when it happened. But then now the bad part of it now is, in every positive move that's happening, there's also competition that's coming on the side. And now also, given the fact that cassava is going to be listing, and then Stuart Bank is part of that, that speaks volumes in terms of how Stuart Bank is going to be capitalized, and also it speaks volumes in terms of how strong the competition is going to be coming on the side of Stuart Bank. Also on top of it being capitalized, Stuart Bank also is so much in business. Stuart Bank is owned by the same people that own EcoCash, and a lot of Zimbabweans are transacting on EcoCash for money running into billions of dollars. So Stuart Bank is going to have financial information on everyone that transacts using the EcoCash number, more than what GetBucks could do. So just from looking at things, Stuart Bank are the ones that are going to be well positioned in terms of rightly evaluating the financial status of a person within some seconds and dispersing that loan more than what GetBucks could do. But then there is a catch to it now. When it comes to Kashagi for Stuart Bank is just saying that Kashagi loans are more like payday loans. They're more like payday loans where you just get your loan just to cover for a bill or just to cover for your sick child of a school fees before you get paid for the next month. So it's kept at $100.
I'll cut you short. I'll cut you short. They can't, Kenneth. In essence,
Yeah.
what I'm getting from you is that this could be something that could threaten the prospects for getbacks,
Yes,
and something to watch out for.
Yeah, it could really threaten the prospects for getbacks. But now, like I said, there's a catch to it. Just because Stuart Bank's Khashoggi is only kept at $100, you
Okay.
can't borrow more than that. And small businesses sometimes may require something above like $2,000 to $5,000,
Okay.
and then
Interesting perspective.
yeah, that's why getbacks can come in and just sort of make gains from that angle.
Okay, so it becomes an issue of focus and all that.
Yes,
okay,
correct.
fair enough. A decline in gold deliveries by 31% in the month of November.
Yeah, it's quite scary actually.
Take us through.
Yeah, it's quite scary actually. Like Zimbabwean artisan miners are always producing. So now the interesting fact on that on that state is that, of course, we did drop by 31% for the month of November. But then if you look from the last quarter that ended in 30 September, I think, to the fourth quarter right now, running into now, there is the biggest drop there of like 70 something percent from the side of artisanal miners, and also like 39% on the side of big scale producers, and then overall with a drop of about 68% in gold deliveries. So just for the 2 months just for the 2 months of October and November combined, that thing really speaks volumes about where we're going as Zimbabwe in future. Just given the fact that we rely on money that's coming from gold exporters. So that story really hinges on how the government is engaging your producers, and the way that gold production has dropped from artisanal miners tells a huge story that these guys are the guys that don't have boards. They just operate anyhow, you know. When they feel like we're being shortchanged, they can just make a decision like this. They don't need to sit as a board and vote on something. So this is more like a group of people, of miners, that are retaliating. Like, government, come on, you can't give them 55%.
Okay, so perhaps there would be a hand of the black market, and this trend could continue.
Yes, correct. I'm just seeing the trend continuing.
With that assumption, what could government do to rectify that?
There's only one way out for government on this one. Government could actually maybe try and meet these guys up for you and ask them, what exactly do you want us to give you, so that you can go back to give you to selling your gold to Fidelity.
Loud and clear.
Right.
Thursday. Parliamentary Committee on Energy and Power Development had a meeting at which there was a clamor from players in the field to the effect that there is lack of transparency in the distribution of forex. Hence the deepening crisis of fuel queues that seem not to actually dwindle. Your take on that?
So actually, I'm going to say that as Zimbabwe, we were rightly poised at the moment. If we had enough forex, we're rightly poised to actually stock up on a lot of fuel. At this moment, where fuel prices are dropping. I think this week and last week as well, we did see like Brent crude oil price dropping to as low as $59, sometimes touching $58, which is really good news for all importing countries. So for Zimbabwe now to be grappling with forex issues and then just sort of missing on this opportunity is really sad. But then going to your question on transparency,
the lack of transparency, because the queues,
it's really going to be hitting the industry big time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's going to be hitting the industry big time, because the small players that the government seems to be supporting are those players that you see if you go to places like some deep rural areas. You see like a small service station that's being run by indigenous player. Those are the people that are servicing your rural population.
Okay.
You know? Exactly. So it really sort of eases pressure on the rural population, saying that if their transporters are not going all the way to the closest city just to get fuel and come back, it can really get easy on everyone in terms of how much they charge their customers. But then also coming back to the city as well, we spoke about those small players crying about just paying rentals for something for zero production or for zero sales, because they're just selling maybe once per week. Some of them are not even selling for like 2 weeks, but then they're expected to pay rentals for their facilities at the end of the month.
Allow me cut you short on that. Now that the issue has been brought before the parliamentary committee, are we likely to see that issue resolved? Because I think at the heart of every Zimbabwean is we don't want to see the queues anymore. So if the transparency is solved, then that problem is actually rectified. So are we likely to see a change in that?
Oh, even from my point of view now, the onus now lies with the authority, maybe the president and also the line minister.
Okay.
Why I'm saying so is from what I've been observing, like in the past few months, our parliamentary committees have been coming really strong.
Okay.
Calling in CEOs, calling in government departments, asking them questions,
Right.
coming really hard on them. It's a new culture that we haven't been seeing in Zimbabwe, which is quite fair enough. So now the onus really lies on the guys that are really at the top to sort of take advice from the guys from the portfolio committees, and also to engage the line ministers and the guys at the RBZ, so that they just become transparent. So even this thing really costs very little. It costs nothing at all for the government just to go to the Herald, to the newspapers and publish. This week we released 60 million for fuel, and so it's getting so much, so and so is getting so much. That's to promote transparency in the public. That's all we want as Zimbabweans.
Fair enough. I look forward to this issue being resolved because I think it's a dent that government cannot afford at this point. Moving on, the ZNCC on the very same day, Thursday, held the 4th annual business review conference where President Idi Mnangagwa was the keynote speaker, getting there to engage with captains of industry.
Yeah.
Well, key issues discussed there?
Okay, so the key issue that really came out of that, from my point of interest, was when the president was asked, are we really a socialist republic? Are we or a capitalist republic or something? Of which the president didn't really answer well that question. He just said, we just do what's best for Zimbabweans. What's really best for Zimbabweans? That's my question. You know, there's nothing that the president explained there. He just said something that came out of...
But Kenneth, at the very event, the president was posed with a question, is Zimbabwe a capitalist country or a socialist country? In his response, he said, we do what is best for Zimbabwe. What did he mean by that? And does that response actually, nail it?
So actually, even if I was the president by that time, I was gonna pause and get worried for a moment. That my people who are right at the top, the business people, actually
captains of industry.
Yes, actually confused about what we are doing as a government.
Okay.
That person who asked that question, it just spoke volumes about how exactly the business is reading the new government. They can't even read into their minds. They don't even know, are they socialist, are they capitalist, or what. And from my thinking, when the president is saying that we do what's best for Zimbabweans, he's just saying that we're a populist government. We just do what makes people celebrate, ululate, when we walk around and bring this for to starving people. When we hear that the people are starving in Cheche, we go there with groceries, people clap hands. When we hear that there's no fuel, government steps in.
In effect, when there is need for us to be capitalist, government is
capitalist, exactly.
And then when there is need for
to be socialist, government is socialist.
Okay.
So there's all confusion around there, which brings us to the question: why exactly people are still confused? Like international business people want to come into Zimbabwe. It's been close. It's been a year now since Mnangagwa took over from Mugabe, and people are still confused. Like, should we go to Zimbabwe? Because there's a lot of policy inconsistencies. Even if the president is saying that we've been consistent, I think they asked him that question at the same ZNCC event, where they questioned how the government is consistent with its policies, and he was like, no, we're really consistent as a government. But if someone asks you this kind of a question, and then as a president you go ahead and answer another question saying that we are consistent in our policies, it speaks volumes about how the president is taking people,
Okay. Another question was then asked with regards to forex retention by the corporates in the country.
Yeah.
And in his response, he said that it would be disastrous to actually allow 100% retention by the local firms. What did he mean by that?
Actually, on this one, my answer is going to be very short. It's very short and simple. Coming from what we just spoke about here, of our government that is really populist, it's going to be disastrous, not for the businesses to retain all their money, because that's what the businesses want, and it will be very good for their employees and everyone else. But it will be disastrous for a populist government to actually give all the money that they can take from businesses back to the businesses, because what's going to happen when someone says we don't have fuel this side, and they want people to clap hands for them and say, oh, the government, the RBZ gave us money for fuel. You know, it will be that disastrous for them. So it is disastrous for them not to have that those US dollars from businesses than it is for the business not to have the money.
Okay, fair enough. Now, on to perhaps a bigger one. There was a congressional hearing on Zimbabwe in Washington yesterday, Thursday, which was presided over by the outgoing United States Senator, a Republican, Mr. Jeff Blake. Presentations given there by Joe Mutizwa, former CEO boss, as well as Center for Global Development Todd Moss. Contrasting views. Joe Mutizwa there speaking in favor of Zimbabwe and saying that it's too early for judgment to be made as to whether Zimbabwe is on a progress trajectory, so to say, vis-a-vis what Todd Moss said. Todd Moss was in the negative, speaking against how the elections were conducted and how there is a lack of seriousness by the Zimbabwean government to actually change the things at a political scale, having a weight or a bearing on how the things actually play out in the economy. With that, should I say, plethora of issues discussed there, what's your take on that? What could this mean for Zimbabwe economically?
So the meaning for Zimbabwe economically is like that meeting was concluded and the sanctions were extended for another 5-year period. So the meaning is just doom for us Zimbabweans, because America is connecting to a lot of financial institutions that fund a lot of progress in many African countries. So if Zimbabwe is sanctioned, a lot of those institutions won't work for us. So that spells doom for us. But then coming back to Mtizwa himself, as a business person, actually just going there and seeing positives, without actually saying that, okay, we did err here and there, and we are in the process of correcting ourselves. It was wrong for him. And then
why would you say it was wrong? Would that not be subjective a bit? Because look, this is a profiled business person who's led at the time the biggest company on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, who's also has quite influence with the key players in Zimbabwe.
Okay, so before you just got in there, I wanted to say, actually, when working with business people, so we ought to be careful, because some of the business people, they are really just on to protecting their interests. We don't really know what Mtizwa has now invested in since the time he left Delta. There are many other business people who ignore every negative thing that's happening in Zimbabwe. People have been killed on 1 August, but some business people are like, no, people were trying to protest, it deserves them.
Well,
and
that was the argument that Todd Moss was presenting.
Exactly. So some business people will be really out on protecting their interests, and that's it. Those are proper capitalists. Capitalists, most of them, they don't really care about a lot of things, but just protecting their money.
But don't you think it holds water to say, in the 3 months that the ED Mnangagwa administration has been running, perhaps it's too early to actually make...
No. Actually, it's not 3 months. It's been more than a year now, because he took power in November.
Okay.
And there's some
Since the election.
Yes, there's some of the simple things that he could have done. Like the US has got issues with Zimbabwe not implementing the 2013 constitution that they made people to vote on. We voted on that, and people said, no, we do want this kind of constitution, and then they just ignored everything else. So we're dealing with the government that sort of ignores what people want. And then for him to be in office
hold
more
on a
than
second. That being said, what could this mean for Zimbabwe going forward as an economy?
So, I just wanna try and bring you.
Go ahead.
I just try and bring you to the present moment.
Okay.
Like what's happening in Zimbabwe right now. What's happening right now in Zimbabwe is a reflection of our recent past, and if we don't correct that recent past in a holistic way.
You mean at a policy level?
Yes, at a policy level. We're just gonna speak of the same thing next year. That maybe next year is a reflection of this past, which is this present.
Okay.
We were actually not doing anything. We had an opportunity to actually fix ourselves when President Mnangagwa appointed that commission of inquiry about what happened when people were killed on the 1st of August. That was a serious issue. The world was watching how exactly is our president is gonna respond to this. But actually, from my point of view, it was really I'm just trying to find a way.
That's the politics of it. We're saying economically moving forward.
Okay. I'm just gonna bring.
What could this mean? Because look,
Uh-huh.
Zimbabwe is operating
I'm just gonna
against
bring- I
a
just-
heavy weight of sanctions here.
Okay, I just want to bring you back to this point.
Okay.
The problem of Zimbabwe right now is not really economic. You know that. It's a problem of politics that needed to be fixed. Hence, the US always saying that may you please implement the 2013 constitution, investigate what happened to the likes of Itai Zamara, to dropping charges against Tendai BT, the charges that were just trumped up. You know, those were all political allegations before we even move into fixing the economy, because our major problem now, like there's a question that is going around that, okay, business may be willing to fix the problems of Zimbabwe, but do we have the political buy-in from our leaders just to sort of fix some of the problems that are happening in our country at the moment? Especially looking at the problems like fuel and this thing of being a populist government that we're speaking about. Is the government willing to let go of that popular of their popular tendencies and let business do their thing themselves, whilst they're fixing the policy issues on the side? Are they willing to do that? I don't think so.
Okay, so in a nutshell, you are, should I say, speaking negative of what we could see in the economy?
Okay, like I said, this present moment is a true reflection of our recent past, and right now there are no clear steps into fixing our recent past into this present moment. If we transcend that into the next 6 months or 1 year, and the government is still behaving that same way, I don't see ourselves really getting out of this quite easily.
That's about it, Kenneth. Thank you very much for your insight. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for joining us. See you again next Friday as we engage on issues that would have taken place during the course of the week that we're about to get into. A very good evening it is to you. Adios.